Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be learning about the discriminant, which is taking a part of the quadratic formula and using it to see before you fill out the entire quadratic formula if there is 0 roots, 1 root, or 2 roots. So we're going to see if the parabola does not cross the x-axis at all, whether it crosses at one point, which means the vertex is on the x-axis, or whether it crosses the x-axis in 2 spots. So let's go ahead and take a look at our notes. So first of all, we are working today on the discriminant. Okay, and the first thing that we want to remind ourselves is about the quadratic formula. And as you know, the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. And as you can tell, once we have our equation in standard form, we're going to go ahead and take out our a, our b, and our c and fill it into those spots and solve for the roots. Now, the discriminant is very simply the portion of the quadratic formula that you find underneath the square roots. So our discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And the discriminant has a job, and its job is that it tells us the number of solutions. And remember, solutions could also be called roots, zeros, or x-intercepts. And it's the same thing. Of course, we've been solving for this all chapter, but what we're looking for is to see the number of times that our parabola crosses the x-axis. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example. So let's say we have x squared minus 5x minus 14. Just like in the quadratic formula, we're going to go ahead and take out our a, our b, and our c. Our a, of course, is our coefficient in front of the x squared, so we have our invisible 1. Our b is our coefficient in front of our x, so our b is negative 5. And our c is our coefficient in front of, not our coefficient, just our constant, which is, of course, our y-intercept, which in this case is negative 14. So we're going to go ahead and fill out the portion that is b squared minus 4ac using this information. So our b is negative 5. And remember, as we're substituting in, we always want to put it in parentheses, especially when we're using our calculator. So negative 5 squared minus 4, and then we put both our a in parentheses and our c in parentheses. And then we're going to go ahead and solve. Negative 5 squared is 25. Remember, we always solve our square first. And then as we're using our quadratic, we have one more to solve, and we plug these 3 numbers in our calculator and we multiply them. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, and negative 4 times negative 14 is positive 56. Then we go ahead and finish. 25 plus 56 is 81. Now this 81 right here is our discriminant. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at that discriminant, and we're going to go ahead and analyze the discriminant. So if that discriminant is positive, like it is in this case, then there are 2 solutions. And of course, our 2 solutions means that our parabola crosses the x-axis in 2 spots. And so if we had this in our original quadratic formula, we would then take the square root of that portion. The square root of 81, of course, is 9. Now, if this number ends up being 0, then there is one solution. And of course, what that looks like is we have our parabola whose vertex is on the x-axis. And that's because the square root of 0 is 0. And plus or minus 0 gives you the same answer from the quadratic formula. And finally, if we end up with a negative number here, a negative 81, and negative 7, and negative whatever, then there are no solutions. And what that means is that our parabola does not cross the x-axis at all. It's above it if it's positive, or it could be below it, like down here, if it is a negative parabola. And that's because if I have a negative number underneath my square root, I get an error in my calculator. You cannot take the square root of a negative number. The square root of negative 81 in our calculator is error. So, ladies and gentlemen, the use of the discriminant is to go ahead and solve b squared minus 4ac using your a, b, and c from your equation in standard form, and then analyze that answer that you get to tell if it is positive, you will have 2 solutions. If the number of the discriminant is exactly 0, you'll have 1 solution. And if the discriminant ends up being any negative number, then there are no solutions. Let's go ahead and get some practice.